And Cenk Uygur, who's mounting a primary challenge against Joe Biden, has released a powerful ad making that point.
We get all the sandwich stuff for the kids' lunch. They don't like turkey anymore.
Yeah, I know.
What about the bananas?
Yeah, I got them too. But, honey,
What?
you're gonna have to put those eggs back.
They don't like eggs anymore?
No, they like eggs, but we have to set that $7 aside for killing Palestinians.
What? I mean, don't we give Israel $4 billion a year anyways?
Yeah, and now we're giving them another $14 billion. Do you know how much that is per American taxpayer?
No.
It's like $85 per person. Apparently, it's costing us a lot of money to drop bombs on Gaza.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Don't they get universal health care too?
Yeah, they do. We're paying for that too, probably. Might as well put the bananas back.
Why the f do we have to pay for all of this?
Don't cuss at me.
I'm Cenk Uygur, and I approve this message. Let's save lives together at cenkforamerica.com.
Tony, do you think anyone's broken the news to Cenk that he can't run for president?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he's going the Arnold Schwarzenegger avenue.
Maybe.
You never know.
He might also be a fan of Kurt Waldheim like Schwarzenegger is. Maybe not. Maybe not. I don't know how that would turn out, that dinner.
Continuation of
Nazi
ideology.
All right, so I did find the post. I'm not claiming this is real. I'm claiming it's on Twitter. I'm claiming it's being circulated and purported to be a sponsored ad that appears to show someone on the left in pain, not in a good way. And this was the source of the account. So we could click into it and we could see like if there's veracity, validity, these sort of things. I'm not making that claim. I'm just saying, as seen on Twitter, not funny humor out there.
Crazy. Not surprising compared to what we're seeing in regards to the propaganda that has instantiated this unfortunate racist ideology within the culture there.
Well, and as we saw at the end of the episode last week, the racism that drives genocide and all those different examples that we gave throughout history is not unlike the situation we're seeing over there. Because when you're about to hear Bibi talk about, you know, how they got to go in and they got to take over Rafah and they're going to do their invasion and all this stuff. And then you understand that it's a concentration camp, tent city, bro. It's not a fortification by a military anything. And that when one side is all Gucci geared up and the other side's like trying to like make some soup and stay alive, that's not a war. That's not a war. We don't have a war. I guess we do have a word for it, but we're still waiting to see which words are the approved words for this narrative. So to check in with earlier today, Bibi, before we get to the news of the week on this whole situation, you got to hear some of these claims, because if you have watched any of the episodes since October 7th, any episode of this podcast, not even in its entirety, you will be able to readily recognize, identify, call out, and debunk what the Prime Minister of Israel just presented to the English-speaking world as his best case for taking the lives of these women and children, for decapitating them, having all these amputations. I mean, we showed last week in the Congo, if you didn't, if you were under King Leopold and you didn't collect your quota of rubber, they'd cut your hands off. And I've seen any number of pictures of kids from these camps in the past couple weeks lost hands because of shrapnel and blown up things and things like that. So it's not even just a death count. The people who are dead, they're out of their misery. The 1 million+ people that have been displaced and are being tortured alive, starved to death right in front of the live stream genocide that they're showing to people every day. And they're getting people to go rah, rah. And you got Michael Rappaport. We'll get to him. He's on the streets of Israel. He's looking for the apartheid, the alleged apartheid that exists over there. Where can he find it? This is his Twitter. I was in it today. I saw it. I could not believe the things that were coming across the screen. So in order to start to demystify this and understand what's going on in reality, let's go first to Prime Minister Netanyahu's YouTube page. Not so many followers. And let's hear the greater part of his 15-minute speech on on the situation and what they got to do to have final victory over Hamas.
You know, I've been seeing you here year after year, but this year it's different. Each year you come here to express your solidarity with the State of Israel, the solidarity of the diaspora with the Jewish state. But this year, that solidarity is particularly important because it's an expression of unity between the Jewish people and the Jewish state, between so many of our friends around the world and the great trial that we are faced with today. We have faced an attack of savagery that is unparalleled since the Holocaust. We haven't seen such cruelty directed against the Jewish people since the Nazi genocide. We've seen children murdered in front of their parents, parents murdered in front of their children, women raped and beheaded after being raped. We've seen youngsters burned alive in death pits. We've seen mothers and babies kidnapped by these monsters. We've
Go ahead and
seen them
pause it just for a
rejoice
second.
over the
Rewind it like 20 seconds, please, LD. Because women and children, and like there were people kidnapped, there were people atrociously murdered on 10/7. Absolutely. There were all sorts of things done. But a couple of those claims he just made seemed overly grandiose, hyperbolized, and factually not true. Did you catch those, Tony? Did you happen to did any red flags go up when he was making those
Well,
claims?
first comparison of being the worst catastrophe since the Holocaust. That was an
So he can
interesting
compare
comparison.
10/7 to the Holocaust, right? Because when Lula
That was
compares
the
this
worst,
situation to the
apparently.
Holocaust, he's going to call him a Nazi in about 3 minutes in his speech. So I'm just trying to understand what the man is saying. His English is very good, and he has that English for Dummies book that he left at Jared Kushner's place. So he's like, he's American schooled. He knows what he's talking about, Bibi. So he's not using. It's not like he's not used to using English. He's not choosing his words poorly. I think it's more deception on his part.
No, this is clever. This is smart. What they're doing is they at this point, it's a concession that they've lost the narrative or lost the factual battle, obviously.
Yeah.
So at this
And I
point, they're
think
double, triple, quadruple down on the lies. We're gonna make it so convincing that we believe the lies that if repeat the lie enough times, we'll get some people to buy it. Plus, at the same time, it's the hubris and the confidence because they're backed up by the United States. They, control or, have such sway, especially over the American politicians in the Senate and the Congress on the executive level. So I think it's also
they caught some of that Biden tone deafness. So when Bibi says these things, when we're going to see the Israeli propaganda minister say these things, like they don't get that America does not believe these things anymore. Like in the last couple months, Americans have seen so much on Twitter and other social media networks about this that they have gotten a PhD education in these topics. So we're way outside of the Hasbara box, and we have evidence, hundreds of points of evidence outside of that official narrative. So it's really hard to go back into that artificially small narrative again when you have these points that exist outside the box, especially about like Two Rothschilds in the State of Israel by Simon Schama in 1978. You start to figure out the origins of the banking class that could buy a country and then take other people of a religious belief and use them for their agenda, get them to move there, put them at war with these other people while they sit outside and manage that country and that whole situation. It's called the Anglo-American establishment, and people could be read up on it by this point because you definitely see the machinations of their colonization efforts in the attempt to get a one world government going on. I know it sounds conspiratorial, but that is the nature of politics and war. And if you're ignorant of that, you can't operate with the cartoonish caricature of reality as your map for very long without getting short shrift. Let's say that. Or as Pesci would say, getting fucked at the drive-thru. Let's say it like that. All right. So let's go back 30 seconds or whatever, and let's hear these claims again.
We haven't seen such cruelty directed against the Jewish people since the Nazi genocide. We've seen children murdered in front of their parents, parents murdered in front of their children, women raped and beheaded
All right,
after
stop.
being raped. We've
Okay. He's very specific there. So I was with him up until the raped and beheaded after raped. Like I can understand there was some rapes probably, but systematized, like they were raping everybody. That claim has been debunked. I have not seen evidence of that, but I'll believe that maybe one or two happened because they're kind of
Isolated incidences
well,
as a part of
they're
the
awfully
chaos of
fuzzy on
war.
how many, Hamas killed of theirs anyway.
Correct.
Right. So now when you're adding on all these extra things that there's no evidence of that's been presented in the court of public opinion, I'm going to have to say, I'm not going to go with you there. I'm going to dismiss that claim as arbitrary. And when you have a very specific claim about beheading after raping and stuff like that, I'm going to call bullshit and say, where's the proof? Where's the evidence of that claim? And if it's not there, why is it so important for you to put it in the first couple minutes of your big propaganda speech here? Continue with the Hasbar.
It's important because it's an appeal to sort of what pathos in this case. So it's an appeal to an emotional. So he's already speaking to an audience that is
using his ethos
agreeable,
too.
Right? There's already agreeable to his mindset, his ideology. So in that capacity, starting up front by appealing to emotion only, it's a clever strategy to condition the. Oh yeah, there's no logos here. Yeah, he doesn't. Ironically, they don't need to appeal to any sort of logical argumentation. And that's the point though, is because there is none to appeal to in this capacity. So actually, embellishing the Hasbara in regards to how much they can build up the lies, hyperbolize the lies, make them grandiose and absurd in order to sell the emotional appeal. This incredible build up to the appeal to emotion fallacy, in order to justify their ongoing evil actions and genocide and ethnic cleansing. So I actually think it's politically expedient of considering the situation they're in.
Well, he wants to stay in office, so he better say something like this. Otherwise, the jig is up. LD, just go back, scrub back like 5 seconds so we can have continuity.
Women raped and beheaded after being raped. We've seen youngsters burned alive in death pits. We've seen mothers and babies kidnapped by these monsters.
Okay, stop. People burned alive in death pits. I thought you guys were the ones with the 200 unidentified smoke bodies from Hellfire missiles that you claimed were yours. Later you're like, no, those weren't ours, but maybe they did it to themselves, right? Like, I don't know where that claim comes from. Are you familiar with the origin of that claim from the Prime Minister of Israel about the bodies in the smoking death pits and stuff? Hamas brought like bulldozers and made pits.
I assume he's talking about the supposed burned bodies that are probably due to the IDF
indiscriminate
forces.
Firing.
So and the
collective
missile
punishment,
right? And the massive caliber that was being shot out of the helicopters. So I mean, out of the army helicopters. So I think it's important to put it in perspective in that regard. What type of burn bits and what are the cause of these burn bits? Is it purely Hamas? So it gets a little bit confusing. Also, the appeal to them as monsters. There's in order to,
and I'm just asking for a friend, but real quick, if you commit these types of murders from the sky, like some sort of sky god with Hellfire missiles, and you do it with the signs and sigils of your group, is that some sort of ritual burnt offering situation there that's being constructed? But again, I'm asking for a friend.
If it's not literal, it's certainly like a sort of homage, sort of paying, sort of respect to a historical recognition of, ritual or rites around warfare and sacrifice and these sorts of ideas within Jewish literature. How much they really practice that or just embellish it? It seems to me they're more secular, but then as part of the romanticization of their own culture, they call back to their theology to just to ramp them up, get them, juiced up and stuff. But if anything, they seem to be
you could talk about Amalek, but not Molech. Okay.
Yeah.
So
they're not the type they're getting into the Simsum or the Kabbalah or something like that in that capacity.
We'll get to Shabbatai Shvi soon enough tonight. All right, let's go to let's see what other claims he's got there.